Alright, beautiful. Alright, Chavre, beautiful. Chodesh Tov. Rosh Hashanah according to Beit Shammai, so Shana Tova to all the inner tzaddik, the inner Ilan. It's not Rosh Hashanah Ilanot, it's the Ilan, and the Ilan is the tzaddik. It's also the day Moshe Rabbeinu started giving over the Torah, the Mishnah Torah. It was the first of the month of the 11th month, Sefer Dvarim. Be'er Hetev, we started explaining the Torah in the 70 languages. The month of Dli, of drawing the waters up, drawing the inner waters up, like Rashi says. It's like why we have Rosh Hashanah Le'ilan in the winter time when most of the fruit aren't on the tree. It's because it's time when the inner work is happening that brings forth the reality down the road. Right now is the inner flow. So also the Torah is like that, right? So it's Shvat, the letter of Tzaddik. We do the fixing of eating this month. Pretty big basic tikkun. Tikkun of eating. If anybody wants to see, there's a little booklet by Sari Hudit Schneider, one of the great Kabbalists of our generation. So she has a kuntras eating as tikkun. Based a lot on Reb Tzadok HaKohen booklet. A lot of it there is based on Reb Tzadok. But it's her own filtration of sources. All right, so we said we were going to jump ahead a little bit, a couple of simanim, but maybe just to fill in the blanks so we don't, like, when I remember first learning halacha and we got to in depth, and we got to the siman like lamed bet where it's talking about the shape of the letters, we just like skipped it, like only Sofrim really need to know that. It's not that's not Torah also, so none of us are really dealing with partnerships with non-Jews right now, I don't think, in our local lives, but maybe we are, but then it is relevant. But we said we would skip a few simanim to stuff that is a little bit more relevant, but I'll just give a summary and a little taste of some pnimiut issues that could come out of these simanim. There are serious halachic issues that we could go in depth in terms of the nature of partnership, owning stocks. If you own a stock that's running on Shabbat, right? What's the story? What's the story? So according to most of the poskim, and we're not going to get into the really in depth right now, but there's, I guess, three possibilities. That you're an owner of the company, and you can own stock that works on Shabbat. B, that the managing, only the stock owners who have control, who have votes, who can affect policy, that those are the owners. And the third opinion is that the managers, actually the paid managers, are like the owners, and sorry, we can't leave the door open, it's a flaw of this house. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Welcome. Amen. Amen. So the maskana according to most, or Moshe Feinstein and many of the other poskim, is that in terms of stocks, you're allowed to own stocks that work on Shabbat, as long as you're not one of the managers, one of the people who runs and makes decisions for the company. But that's one of the halachic discussions that comes out of these couple of simanim partly. So it's not like totally irrelevant to us. But let's get to it. So Reish Mem Gimel. If you want to see in the Shulchan Aruch, Siman Reish Mem Gimel, you can look together. If Dina Maskir Sadeh Merchatz Le'eno Yehudi, Lo Yaskir Adam Merchatz Shelo Le'eno Yehudi, Mipnei Shenikra Al Shemo. Okay, again, we rent out your bathhouse to a non-Jew on Shabbat because it's called on your name.
So it's like Shem and Marit.
Yeah, Shem, Mahut, your name is your essence. Okay, so here we go. I don't know if there's a time in the Torah before where renting is mentioned, before the night Issachar was conceived, right? She rented Yaakov, but for the Dudaim. It uses the root, the skir, it uses that there. So a lot of the Hasidic Sfarim say, based on that rent and renter have a dveikut kind of connection. They're really bonded. They're totally connected. In fact, there's a Gemara, the Maharal talks about this. There's a Gemara that says that's why Yisachar was known as incredible Torah, Sitrei Torah, as a master of the Shevet Yisachar, of the Sitrei Torah, the secrets of the Torah. And
because
it was
of what?
Because of the act of creating some sort of bonding through rental that creates a unified force. So it's brought down that if you rent out your bathhouse to a non-Jew, you have a relationship that's, you're part of it. Nikra al Shmo, your essence is part of working that bathhouse.
Just a bathhouse or anything you rent to a non-Jew?
So you'll see in a second. He says, "Ve'noidi zeh oseh melacha bo b'Shabbat." Destam merchatz lav la'arisuta. Aris, an aris is like a what's a crop sharecropper? When somebody works the land and the produce is split, you get to keep some, and the balabait gets to keep some. That's a different level than sechirut. An aris has both his own identity and a deep connection with the master. For example, there's a Zohar Kadosh, Zohar Chadash, talks about Eov saying they were in his debates with Hashem, saying, my father and mother made me, and you gave me my spirit, my soul, as an aris. In other words, we get to, it's not my, it's not the land. The soul is sort of like both in Olam Elyon and in this world. So it's also used, it's brought down in the Midrash a couple of times, how there was a king who had an aris who over his kerem, his vineyard. When it was good wine, he said, wow, I have a great vineyard, right? When it was bad wine, he said to the aris, it's your wine, it's your grapes that are no good. Basically, it's the same grapes, but there's two separate identities in that grapes. So that would be allowed. You're allowed to...
Is it different than a partnership?
It's different than a total partnership, okay? We'll get there also, but the first stage is renting your public bathhouse. And you'll see the Mishnah Berurah talks about that it's based on Marit Ayin. We're not going to go really in depth now in Marit Ayin, the halachas of Marit Ayin. We'll do that in a couple other places. The place in the Shulchan Aruch where it talks about it directly about Shabbat is when your clothes are wet, to dry it in a private area so that nobody thinks you did laundry on Shabbos, right? So that's we'll get to Marit Ayin in depth. It's fascinating. What is Marit Ayin? Is it different than Chashad? Can we be Mechadish new things in Marit Ayin, or is it only things that was told Marit Ayin? There's fascinating discussions, halachic discussions about Marit Ayin. We'll get there. When I was in grade 10, just to say, I want to mention him for the good, Rafael Marcus was my Gemara teacher in Kita Yud, Alav Shalom, and he saw that it wasn't working what we're doing Gemara. He's like, okay, let's learn halacha be'iyun, and it was one of my first times I ever learned inside the in depth. Like we were learning like Yoredea, Basar v'Chalav, what the Smicha students learn, with like the Shach and the Taz, and we were learning the sugya of Marit Ayin, of when you have when you're cooking chicken with almond milk, if you have to put the almonds out, so that people know that it's almond milk, not. So that's another classic example of Marit Ayin in the cases, and when you're in private or public, D'Rabbanan, D'Oraita, we'll get there. Okay? So this is also, we could have gone on a deep dive into Marit Ayin. We're not going to do it right now. We'll do it when it says it in the Shulchan Aruch. It'll come up in a little while. B'ezrat Hashem. Okay, so there's this a socher, aris, and the third one is a kablan. Kablan has no connection whatsoever with the balabait. I pay you to fix my fence. I don't say when to do it. He does it on Shabbos. Fence actually is different. You'll see, because it's something that somebody might think that you paid him to do it. But let's say just a kablan is the balabait doesn't really have an obligation. It doesn't violate Shabbat by having a kablan. It's ada'ate. It's on his head, his knowledge. He decided when to do the action. He just has to do it, right? He just has to do it. I think that's why a lot of times issues with non-Jews. So that's Resh Mem Gimel, okay? In a nutshell. The
kablan's a non-Jew.
Yeah, we're talking about these next simanim, Resh Mem Gimel, Resh Mem Dalet, is talking about preparing for Shabbat with your non-Jewish partners or workers. And because we said it's not as directly relevant to us, we were going to skip to actual Shabbat preparation by next week. So this is just like a quick summary of a few of the issues here, just to know what's here. Okay? If the merchatz, by the way, if your bathhouse is in an area where there's not Jews, you own it, your partner, your renter would be allowed to rent to take part of it, to run that business. Okay, we'll see in the next. We'll see in a couple more simanim. You can make a deal with the non-Jewish partner that you split the wages. That would be all right. How does that work? We'll talk about that. So that's the Maharal. Interesting about Sechirut, the Zohar and the Shla Kadosh. I didn't mention the Olam Haba, Olam Hazeh distinction of the Aris.
Oh, this is in both places?
Right, the Aris is in both places. The Shla makes that distinction very directly based on the Midrash, about the king and the wine. And the Kablan, En lo shaychut ladavar, he has no connection to the thing to the action, the balabait. The Kablan is to do it, and he decides when to do it. It's not, we don't have, he's not my shaliach to do this particular action on Shabbat. He decides when to do it. Okay? So just like a couple of, I think, little nuggets. Okay? About the name of a person, I just want to point out there's a very beautiful piece in the beginning of Pirkei Avot by Rav Chaim of Volozhin in his Perush Ruach HaChaim. He wrote the Nefesh HaChaim, right? One of the classics of mystical thought, the student of Vilna Gaon. So his commentary on Pirkei Avot, the first Mishnah, Moshe Kibel Torah Sinai, he talks about the names, the name being the essence, that when Adam Arishon named the animals, it says extra words that he gave them the name and gave them Ruach Chaya. He brought down pretty much their life force, their Shoresh Elyon into this world. And so it's a beautiful, we're not going to do it, but it's a page or two. If one day when you're interested in names and the names expressing a root of above, on one hand the name is not our essence, our essence, our neshama is beyond our name, but our name is reflected upon our neshama's action in this world, in this particular stage, right? It's something very mahuti. Like I remember one of
How did you get to name now?
Because he says the problem with the socher, the non-Jewish socher, is nikra al shemo, because it's as if his essence is connected, like the root the root of this merchatz working on Shabbat is connected to the Jewish person as well. It's called by your name. Okay, it's not like we're assuming that this is the Jews owns it, and the non-Jew is working for him, and not just renting it as his own entity. That's because, according to the Primiut, at least according to some of the sources, Sfat Emet also talks about it in a couple of places, the concept of schirut being creating a bond that's really direct, like almost like a dveikut. They use the word dveikut there, especially in relation to the rental of Yaakov. It's brought down that if somebody the Maharal brings it down in Sanhedrin, he brings it down that the Gemara says that if the woman really wants her husband, then they will be zocheh to Talmidei Chachamim coming out of their union. It's Gemara and Eruvin, and the source for that is again also Issachar and the rental. So he says the rental creates a dveikut between them. That's very they're connected. Their essences are connected. Yeah. Okay. Look, it's not we're not going in depth in the halacha. I just wanted to you should know what's here and that what could come out of it. Okay. So the certainly there's issues of ownership and what it means to own and the like. So let's go to Reish Mem Dalet. This is a continuation of that. I think Amichai, you started asking about this. Ezo melachot yachol haino Yehudi lasot ba'ad Yisrael. Posek, which means matneh. You can make a condition or a clause. Im haino Yehudi al hamlacha. You can make a sort of an agreement. The kotzetz damim, and you can split the funds. The haino Yehudi oseh le'atzmo. There's a way to do it. In private, שאין מכירים הכל שזו המלאכה נעשית בשבת של ישראל היא, אבל אם הייתה ידועה ומפורסמת, אסור. If it's well known that the Jew and the non-Jew have this deal going down where they can make the store, the ice cream store, function on Shabbat, and it's a trick, it's a legal fiction. These Jews look at this guy, that's one of the opinions of Maritain is Chilul Hashem, the sources. One of the sources, Nekim Tiyu Hashem, that there shouldn't be a separate outside and inside, there shouldn't be different. Another source, Maritain, is there's a bunch of different sources. They might come to make a mistake. Chilul Hashem is one of them. Okay. Sharoet eno Yehudi osek eno yodea shekatzatz. They don't know that they made this agreement and that the Jew doesn't have any benefit from the store opening on Shabbat. ואומר שפלוני שכר אינו יהודי לעשות מלאכה בשבת. And somebody will say that the Mr. Anonymous Ploni rented or hired this non-Jew to do his work on Shabbat. לפיכך הפוסק אם אינו יהודי לבנות לו חצרו או כותלו או לקצור לו שדהו. So therefore, if you make a deal with the non-Jew to build you a courtyard or a wall or to harvest your field, אם הייתה מלאכה במדינה, if it was או בתוך התחום, אסור לו להניחה לעשות לו בנחת שבת, מפני הרואים שאינם יודעים שפסק. Right? If it's in the civilization, within the boundaries, then you can't do it.
So you can't just publicize that you like katzatz?
So that's a good question. So we'll get to the Maritain to make
to split it. It's like you get like the go
I'll
against
take
everything
Tuesdays,
for
you take
Shabbos.
Saturdays.
Yeah,
So the Jew doesn't make any profits on Shabbos.
No.
Right.
So
that's only allowed when it's in private, when it's not in the public sphere.
So what's the question? Because I'm saying in general, like if he's running the store, it's not my store today, so it's not even
right. So it's a Maritain question. And more than that, it's a there's some of the Mefarshim talk about what are we talking about? We're talking about keeping Shabbos here. You can't just say, sorry, I can't work on Shabbat, close the store. We have so many cases of people who were willing to be Moser Nefesh to close their store on Shabbat, and it came back to them in other ways. You might not realize it right away. Your ice cream. If I had an ice cream store there's a guy here in Tomet Karkur, the ice cream store. They're open on. They have to be open on Shabbos. The Tomet Karkur in Shemer Mall. They have to be. He said, I would love to close on Shabbat. They said, I can't because people won't come if they won't come shopping. If the ice cream store is closed, I would love to. It's a travesty. He would love to close his store on Shabbat and be with his family. He's not a kippah wearer, but to have his business, he has to be open on Shabbat. So I said, let's talk to some dayanim and make a deal with maybe a non-Jew, at least that the Shabbat would be his. And I'll try again maybe another time.
Buy him some ice cream.
the arena in הרצליה, אז לא יודע.
שזה חייב להיות פתוח.
זה צריך להיות פתוח, אז הוא של גוי.
Yeah. That's one of the issues going on in our country right now with the Makolet clause. It's not only a question of freedom of religion. It's also a workers' rights issue. That if the Balabait decides to keep the store open on Shabbat, the workers would ultimately be forced to choose between keeping Shabbat or having a job. So it's not only an issue of can there's a lot of facets to it. All right, I didn't mean to get so involved. I don't mind, if you want to go, we can go. But I sent you some sources. Did you may get to learn this week? Worked out. You learned a little bit. The Bach, Beit Yosef, Gemara. They do the Bach. Interesting, right? It's like basic. Okay. All right, next, the Ramah, Haga. Remember the little Haga means the Ramah's, the Mapah, the tablecloth of the Shulchan Aruch, the Ashkenazi halacha and customs. And it's written in what's called Rashi script. Rashi didn't really have that script, but it was just used to distinguish between Rashi and the Gemara or the Chumash. So it's called Rashi script, but Rashi didn't know anything about it.
Where did it come from?
It's actually Sephardi style, but it came later. It was just used as a printing font. But if you look at old Sephardi writing, it's not like our modern Hebrew writing. The circle writing is Ashkenazi script, cursive, whatever you call it, and many of the old Sephardim still write with this what we call Rashi script. I've seen some letters of a great Sephardi. I didn't understand it. I was young. I was like, why are they writing in Rashi script? Rashi is Ashkenazi. I'm like, no, this is Ashkenazi. What happened actually, Rav Kook and Rav Elisar, before the Rishon LeZion, before Rav Kook was a chief rabbi, there was a chief rabbi, the Rishon LeZion, and they were when there was Aliyah, they decided to how we're going to do this. Kibbutz Galuyot, we Hebrew the Shabbat, Shabbos, Shabbos, how are we going to write? So they made sort of a compromise that we would speak sort of the Sephardi style and we would write the Ashkenazi style. I'm sure Rav Kook had in mind the Chatam Sofer's teacher of Natan Adler who said that you should the proper thing would be Sephardic pronunciation, but anyway, there was like it's basically our holy writing and our holy speaking is for the Achdut of Am Yisrael and coming together in the land of Israel.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that modern Hebrew isn't exactly, it's not exactly Sephardic.
Well, it depends which Sephardi, right? There's lots of different, but yeah.
Right, it's like a lot of nuancing and kilo.
Yeah, it's closer to the Sephardi than the Edot HaMizrach, that's for sure. Anyway, let's not get into it right now. If anybody's interested, we could talk about it. I did a little bit of research back a long time ago, and my 18-year-old, 19-year-old research days are probably not as good as they would be now, but I think the Syrian might be the most precise. That's what I thought when I was 18, 19. Alright, let's continue. ואפילו אם דר בן אינו יהודי יש לחוש לאורחים הבאים. The Rama says, even if
But
you...
his own guests?
You know, you might, yeah, there might be travelers. Even if you live amongst non-Jews and you're a Jew, you have a store or a field, and somebody's working on it, and it happens to be that a Jew comes to town, gets lost in the woods, or gets his, agala gets stuck, or he's on the way to see a Rebbe, and he met a little old man, and he helped, and all these crazy stories that somebody gets. It's not the. You're not in Alaska. You're in a little town in southern Poland, somewhere where there's not a Jewish community. There can't be a Jew coming into town. So the Rama says it's not so clear. Based on the Beit Yosef, the Shem Tshuvat Ashkenazim. We're not going to get so into it, but ואם הייתה מלאכה חוץ לתחום וגם אין עיר אחרת בתוך תחומו של מקום שעושים בו מלאכה, מותר. If it's outside of the tchum, okay. So here we're talking about a little bit about the tchum. We're not going to go really in depth in the halacha part, just to know that when we talk about tchum, the Arizal brings it down, that on Shabbat we're trying to spread kedusha, but if we're doing it outside of our tchum, we give koach to the chitzonim, the outside forces. The other side, when there's so much kedusha, it can give energy to the other side.
What does it mean?
The tchum is the
boundary?
Is the boundary of like walking outside of the 2000.
Right. So what does the Arizal mean?
The Arizal says when our Shabbos is so holy that if you leave your space, your intimate space, you can the holiness can sort of seep out to the outside forces. What does it mean by outside forces?
No. What does it mean to leave the space within yourself? He's not necessarily talking about something physical, right? He's talking about.
I think he's talking about both. But you're right. He's talking about to get out of your own center, your own nekuda. So if the malacha, if the work has to be done outside of the tchum, right, and there's nobody around, there's no city, then it would be allowed to allow the non-Jew to function there, right? It's not like the world has to stop on Shabbat. The outside world can function on Shabbat. We don't have an obligation to make the whole world Shabbat observant, right? But we have to be careful with bringing our focused Shabbat. Atomic energy is not enough, right? Like our just incredible Ore and Sof that comes into this world, and keep it mitucham, keep it in boundaried in our experience. So that's some of the pnimiyut that's connected to here, but okay. So that's another issue. That's another issue that's coming around. The difference between private areas and public areas in the Jew-non-Jew relationship, anticipating Shabbat coming, and there's more. There's more on this in Rishonim Achronim.
Was there a final verdict about Kotzetz and Enu Yehudi? Like you're not allowed to do it so long as it's within a tchum of a city?
No, you'd be allowed to do it.
Just don't tell anybody.
No, you'd be allowed to do it. Like for example, they bring down. You're allowed to have a partnership with a non-Jew, but you have to have the T'nai coming before. You have to make the agreement.
You're not going to earn any.
The Shabbos is his. Tuesdays are yours. And the truth is, even if it's Tuesdays and Shabbos, you're allowed to split it half and half.
What do you mean?
You're allowed to take the entire earnings, and you don't have to figure out the exact day that this much was earned and that much was earned. You know what I mean? You don't have to go through the ledgers and see every day what was earned.
You just split whatever.
You just split it right down the middle. You're allowed to assume.
So what was this whole conversation?
So this whole conversation is about Maritayin, and this is talking about essentially kablanut and not partnership, right?
So
it's like you're a worker.
And that's more.
Remember?
That's more.
Yeah, that should be less of a problem. You're right, based on the stuff we said before. Okay, I have to think about it. To be honest, I didn't go that in depth this time with this stuff because I was more assuming we were going to go further. So I apologize. But bottom line is, it's very Maritayin in this cases are very important, and very important in terms of not being or chad. They're two separate but interrelated issues. Anyway, the Achronim basically, if I remember correctly, and you can look at the Mishabura, the Achronim agree that we don't separate the places that are Mutar and Asur pretty much in our days. Okay.
So okay.
Well, I mean, we could do more in depth.
We
could do more in depth.
So basic partnership, you're allowed to have a partnership with a non-Jew and have his store open on Shabbos so long as he's making the profits. And a non-Jewish worker, you shouldn't have him do work for you on Shabbos.
You shouldn't have him do work for you on Shabbos if it looks like it was work that you
unless it's outside the tchum.
Yeah, unless it's or if it's clear. There's also some of the Achronim talk about if it's something that's such long going, it's not just a one-time thing that everybody knows about it, which is what you said. Put up a sign. I think that would be allowed as well. Okay, but fixing your house, like your roof, your shingles, or things like that, would be not allowed at any time because it's tzorech mechubar, and you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't have him do that. Even if it's kablanut, you say, I don't care when, but fix my roof. It shouldn't be done on Shabbat because it's something that is so clearly the realm of possibilities that they would say, oh, look at this guy, either they might say he's doing it on Shabbat, so basically you're allowed to do it, or they might say, oh, look at that, look at Farkas, he's so holy, but he's doing that.
It's interesting, sorry for being speculative, but in America, all the gardeners, everyone has gardeners that usually they're, Mexicans that come in with their things. And they don't ask you when they can come or not. Everybody knows they're not Jewish. Everybody knows you don't tell them what days to come. They just show up and cut your grass.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting. In that case, it's pretty clear to everybody that you're not telling them to come on Shabbos.
Yeah, but look at the next one, Gimel, Reish Mem Daled Gimel. Im banu eno Yehudi l'Yisrael bayit b'Shabbat b'Isur. Nachon lachmir shelo yikansu bo.
Wow.
You shouldn't even go in there until the amount of time it would take to build it after Shabbos. Then you can go in there, right? Like it's called Maaseh Shabbat, right? Haga miu im hitna Yisrael imeno Yehudi shelo la'asot lo melacha b'Shabbat. If you made the agreement with the non-Jew to not do it on Shabbat, ve'eno Yehudi asa'a ba'al korcho lemaher la'ashlim melacha machto. And lachush. If you tell the non-Jew, I don't want you to do it, you don't have to do it on Shabbos, don't do it on Shabbos, and he does it anyway, because he wanted to finish it faster, you don't have to worry about it, okay? That's his deal, not your deal. Okay? Public works are also problematic. Look, in Israel, there's a whole realm of books that were written about the halachas of the Medina and like how to function as a society where you don't just have to have non-Jews working for you doing all the things that should be done. There's a whole literature about it, right? Like electric company, some people said it should be non-Jews working on Shabbos, other people said no, it's a pikuach nefesh, other people say, there was all these different opinions. So it's a whole new game, I guess, having our own country. That's
what do they decide on that?
There's different decisions. You see, in some neighborhoods they have generators. They don't. Some neighborhoods don't flush the toilets. Really.
You're not going to have Arabs running things.
No. I think they do flush the toilets. Come on, nobody else with trumpet. By the way, there's a beautiful piece by Rabbi Natan in Likutei Halachot where he talks about why is there leniencies for these. For, just say you don't have to work on Shabbos. You don't have to work on Shabbos. He said the mammon is the kli, the vessel for all of our holiness. And if we don't have our funds in order, if we don't have our physical gashmi, the money is not disconnected from the holiness. It's the seat of how we can have holiness in our lives. And so, bishvil zeh, the Chachamim found all these ways to allow it b'tzorach gadol. Actually, I wrote what he wrote. Mamon hu hakli dikdusha. I have to remember this for myself. It's just Mamon hu hakli dikdusha, and the Ramah. So, for example, we're allowed to. There are things that Bimkom say that when there's a place of hefsed, they allow it, even though it would seem anti-kedusha, because there's kedusha in allowing us to subsist. And anyway, it's a nice piece by Rabbi Natan.
I have a close friend I grew up with.
It's in Shchenim, in Hilchot Shchenim, not in Shabbat.
What's the whole story of the Samaritan? Why doesn't all the halacha say to look at people buying Tuvia?
Nachon.
Why do I have to? I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. He looks at me.
Yeah, it's a great question. We're told that. On the other hand, we're told by Beit Din, for example, right? They only can deal with what they see, the facts on the ground, of what's visible and clear. And so it's the whole issue of seeing what's on the surface or what's inside, and so the question is, what is the reason for it? Is the reason that people will judge you, or is the reason people will come to make a mistake themselves and say, Vechter samet hakvisa, put their laundry on the line because it got wet in the rain and you put it on the line. But you're allowed to do laundry on Shabbat if you have children. The neighbors will say, because these religious people are doing it, so we're allowed to do also laundry on Shabbat for our children. So that's one opinion. In other words, it's to prevent mistakes. Another opinion is to prevent chilul Hashem, or judgments of other people. We don't want people to we want things to be clear and not speculative. But there are limits. There are limits. We're not going to get into all of it now because we'd have to really do it misudar from the Mishnah and the Rishonim and the Yerushalmi. Where's Mr. Yerushalmi? He's not here. I'm not sharing any Yerushalmi. I'm joking. It's complicated. But for example, you have, how many of you don't cook on Pesach with matzah flour, cakes and stuff like that? Isn't that maritime? Oh, your gebrach stuff?
No, I'm gluten free. I just
you don't even know.
disgusting oat
No, but I mean, like people do cakes. They look like a regular cake, right? On Pesach, brownies.
They have sandwiches in it.
That's not maritime? So there's all these questions. Cheeseburger, kosher cheeseburgers, or frying fake bacon bits. All these things are pretty much allowed because we don't extend maritayin to new things beyond what was the original thing. The original thing was I think fish blood, not to drink fish blood because maybe they'll think, blood. You drink blood. I want to drink blood because fish blood is okay, right? Fish blood is we don't have an Isur Dam on the fish blood. So say if there's kaskasim in it, then it's okay.
Yeah.
Inside the blood?
Yeah, pretty yummy, eh?
They know you're just crazy. They're not gonna.
Anyway, okay. But bottom line is a lot of what we think Maritayin would be in the modern world does either because it's well known that there are milk substitutes, right? Or because we can't do new Maritime Takanas after the what's in the Talmud. But it's a strange dynamic between down the kafschut, the ideal of what we should be looking at, the premium, and the practical. That people, all we have to look is what we see, and we might make mistakes with that. Beitin, I would even say that it's a big question of does the Metziut determine the halacha? Does reality determine the halacha, or does the halacha determine the reality? The whole case Rosh Chodesh, we're on Rosh Chodesh now, of Rav Yeshua and Rav Gamliel, when they didn't have the same calculations, and Rav Gamliel was the Nasi, and he commanded Rav Yeshua to come to see him on his Yom Kippur, and he went to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said, Rabbi Akiva said, it's okay, Moed. You guys call, we determine the holidays. It's not, even if you're absolutely right, he was convinced he had the truth. So what's the halacha, what's the reality, it's
both. Makadesh Yisrael b'hazmanim, Makadesh HaShabbat.
Yeah.
Shabbat is Shabbat, no
Shabbat is
matter what, but
Kaviyah
Yisrael determines the zmanim. So
yeah.
you have that God gave the joint relationship in that way.
Yeah. Okay, let's continue a little bit more. Just I want to get to the stuff we prepared, if we have a chance. If not, not feeling 100% anyway. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Amen. יהודי הקונה מכס, הוא מזכיר לו אלו יהודי לקבל מכס בשבת, מותר אם הוא בקיבולת, היינו שאומר לו כשתיבא אתן לך כך וכך. Again, more splitting fees and jobs. It's very important, the Rama says, that you're not sitting with your non-Jewish partner on Shabbat at the office, or if he's doing work for you, because then it would really look like whether you have any role in it, you might be totally not related to it, but it might look like you're involved. So that's okay. Resh Mem Hey Israel ואינו יהודי שיש להם שדה או תנור או מרחץ או לחיים של מים בשותפות או שהם שותפים בחנות, בסחורה, whether you have partnerships in objects or a business. אם יתנו, if they made an agreement מתחילה בשעה שבאו להשתתף, when they got together to be partners, שיהיה שכר השבת אינו יהודי לבדו, אם מעט ואם הרבה, it doesn't matter whether it's a little or a lot, ושכר יום אחד כנגד יום השבת לישראל, and Tuesdays would be all for the Jew, לבדו מותר, ואם לא ייתנו בתחילה כשיבואו לחלוק, נותן אינו יהודי שכר השבתות כולם, והשאר חולקים אותו. Okay, if they didn't make the agreement, then the non-Jew gets all the money for Shabbat, and then they split the rest. Okay, but you're allowed to technically say Tuesdays are mine, Shabbos is yours, and just split it down the middle. But if they started the business together and then, I forgot we have Shabbos, then the Shabbos are all his. You have to calculate the specific Shabbos income, and the rest you split. Okay. I had a couple of things about that, but yeah.
Let's say you have a website, and you sell goods on the website like 24/7.
A lot of big questions about that.
Yeah.
Right?
So you're allowed to.
There's a lot of questions about that. First of all, there are places in the world that it's not Shabbat. Okay, so that's one of the ways they try to be.
But let's say it is Shabbat.
But yeah.
No, you're on the World Wide Web, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's automated. It's automated, right?
Bigger question: if a Jew comes on his Shabbat and he buys from you, basically you enjoy money. של יהודי אחר בשבת. You're enjoying Chilul Shabbat of other Jew, basically.
if you're not,
So-
but yeah, but I mean, it depends what kind of thing you're osik in. But let's say you're fulfilling some kind of order, you're giving them some kind of
You give him a product.
yeah. So I mean, you're not fulfilling the order. Like you wouldn't get to fulfilling the order until probably well after like the end of Shabbos. Till like anyway, you would have had time to do the business on Shabbos. In all likelihood, right? I mean, it's hard. That's like the monish. The second Shabbos is out, you're like running to that box. And
No,
get
but
it,
let's say
put it
the
there,
money,
whatever it is.
the money was transferred already during Shabbos.
Right, but it's all the same to you. Like you could have done it mostly Shabbos. In other words, you're not benefiting from the fact that you did it on Shabbos versus Sunday night. Like by the time you fulfill the order on Monday, you know what I'm saying?
But why
I don't
can't
know.
you make money if
I'm
you
sorry
don't?
to speak.
If you don't do the melacha, what's the
Right,
problem to make money?
Right. So there's also one of the things we're about to get to is the issue of whether we have an obligation, what's called shvitat kelim, right?
Passive income.
No, whether your possessions, whether your objects need to be keeping Shabbat. The Beit Shammai says yes, shvitat kelim is asur. Beit Hillel says shvitat kelim is mutar. That only your animals or your slaves would be obligated to rest on Shabbat. By the way,
But I mean, an answering machine in Shabbat, you have to turn it off according to the first view?
according to Beit Shammai, yeah, you would not be allowed to use answering machine, putting on your laundry machine before Shabbat. Look, we have another issue, Ashkenazim, about hashma'at kol, about sound, making, but that's not for right now. Okay. So I'm not giving you a straight answer because there's a lot of different particulars.
So, but maybe I can have a goy, a partner goy.
Yeah.
He will be a partner just
You
for
might not even need
Shabbat.
to. You might not even need to. You should speak to specifically. They're experts in these business halachot.
Like
Okay.
I know, you know B&H, the
Photo place.
the photo
New
place.
York.
This,
Kol Hasidim.
okay. So their store is completely.
Their website
website is closed on Shabbat.
closed on
You cannot
New York,
buy-
New
you cannot
York
buy-
time Shabbat.
Yeah.
I think that might not
You're
be
doing Beit Shammai,
necessary,
maybe.
but you should check with a dayan.
What
in
if
terms
Mishu
of business
Chodesh is
business halakha.
Respect that.
I don't want to say an answer, but you should check with the dayan. I think there's room. Yeah. You have to speak to the dayan. And generally the dayan will make you see face to face, not on the phone, because once they hear before they see you, it's complicated. Yeah. All right. מותר להשאיר רשמבה, מותר להשאיר ולהשכיר כליו לאינו יהודי. You're allowed to rent or lend your possessions to non-Jew. ואף על פי שהוא עושה בהן מלאכה בשבת, מפני שאין אנו מצווים על שביתת כלים like בית הלל. There's a few places in Chassidut where they talk about this machloket, Beit Shammai, Beit Hillel. They're saying that Beit Shammai is on such a level that they're saying that on Shabbat we can impact the holiness of the domain of the inanimate world and uplift it. And Beit Hillel is like, let's be real. We have a chance with people, we have a chance with animals, but to uplift the inanimate, we're not there yet. And future times, when Allah has been like Beit Shammai, we'll be able to uplift even the inanimate on Shabbat, and then maybe in the future we'll have who knows, Isur Shvitat Kelim on Shabbat.
No crock pot, no hot water on Shabbat.
Yeah.
It's a very different Shabbat.
Yeah, I don't know exactly with all the Hagdarot, but
He gets into it in the end of Perek Aleph of Shabbos.
The Rambam.
No, in the Machloket Shvita Kelim between Beit Shammai, because that's the inyan of Bishul. So
Right.
whether or not Erev Shabbat, if it's not Machav and
Right,
Dursai, if you can continue it. But I think even Beit Yosef, even Beit Shammai would say, if it was
If it
enough
was-
cooked before Shabbat, then it's not an issue of Shvita's Kelim on Shabbat. That's
yeah. All right.
so crock pot would be fine.
Yeah.
And hot water would also be fine.
But here he's talking about Machresha.
I need a coffee.
ויש אומרים, should I make coffee?
No.
On Shabbos.
ויש אומרים את הכלים שעושים בהם מלאכה, כגון מחרשה. If you're talking about a plow, אסור להזכיר לנו יהודי בערב שבת, וביום ההיא מותר להזכיר לו, ועד שלא ייטול שכר שבת, אלא בהבלעה. This is a very famous piece of halacha, that if you're renting something like a plow, you can't do it on Friday, you can't rent it on a Friday, or lend it on a Friday, but you could, and you shouldn't take money for it, but it could be allowed to be what's called behavla'a, swallowed up. כגון שיזכיר לו לחודש או לשבוע ולהשאיר לו מותר אפילו בערב שבת. If you're doing this, if you're renting, you could rent it for a week. If he does it on Shabbat, he does it on Shabbat. The plow. Okay? If you could rent it out like that on that's also the source for a lot of people who have non-Jewish living aids or people helping, Nepali or Filipino workers who do all sorts of stuff to say, okay, I'm paying you a weekly wages to do all these things. I'm not paying you to work on Shabbat, but I'm paying you for the week. It's called the havla'a. Okay? Okay, but animals, we have a isur shvitat be'ema, okay, there's a Likutei Halachot or Rabbi Natan who says that hitpashtut hakdusha ala behemot happens on Shabbat. That even our animalistic, literally our animals, but also our behemi impulses are sanctified on Shabbat. So that's the spiritual root of why we are animals shouldn't work on Shabbat, and let them rest. It's explicit Torah, explicitly injunction from the Torah to let the animals and servants rest. It seems from Hilchot Shabbat of the Rambam that he expands the concept of servants from the Torah to include a variety of gerei toshav and all that. Like, in other words, not only literal slaves from the biblical times, but other kinds of non-Jewish workers in the area. I have to look at it more in depth, but I remember there was an issue about that.
The animalistic nature is sanctified, meaning it's transformed in us?
Yeah.
Or the quality of anything animalistic we're doing, we're able to do it in a Kedusha way? I mean, what does it mean?
What does it mean? I think you give two good options. It means that we're more able to uplift the animalistic. I'm not sure if every animalistic thing is automatically sanctified on Shabbat.
Right, because there's an aspect of being with the woman, eating in a different way. So those could be, depending on how you do it.
Yeah.
Maybe it has the potential to be uplifted.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if the extra neshama comes in automatically, there's a transformation in us.
Potential for.
No, what do you guys think?
You have the aspect of neshama coming in that's more activated. There's a more spiritual aspect coming within us. So we can take that and transform something that normally might be automatic in a lower level. Whether it's sexuality, eating, very connected through the mouth,
We see
speech.
We see it in a very pashtut way. Like our eating is so different on Shabbos.
Is it though?
I mean, when during the week do I sit and sing songs to God at the table? When do I, even sanctify God's name with a glass of wine? So I'm saying even the small acts we do at the Shabbos table already transform something that is animalistic, right? It's our animal soul that needs to eat, into something a bit holier. So we definitely see that something is transformed, even on a very, even if it's not like the entire being, but just the fact that we're eating differently is already a transformation.
Good, so we should be blessed to do it. Really.
Amen.
Unbelievable. Like this month, like you said, Tikkun of eating and Tu B'Shvat Seder is about fixing what happened in Gan Eden. So being able to eat, I've seen a Rebbe that can eat in that way. It's a big thing to do things. You read about the Rebbes when they were making love. They had such perfect kavanah. They were bringing down these high souls. So every Shabbos we have that opportunity. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's do a little more. Reish Mem Zayin, Din Eino Yehudi Hamavim Ketavim B'Shabbat, a non-Jewish mailman. You could send mail with a non-Jew even if it's Erev Shabbat, as long as you didn't tell him go on Shabbat. You just give it to him in general. Siman Remes, yeah. V'im lo kitzet or lo kavia beidor, if you don't have if you're not paying him for the general thing, in other words that you can't send it even from Yom Rishon if you're not making a general I don't know if it's a contract, but a payment that wouldn't be construed as Shabbat payment for the letters. I don't really have a lot of premium to say about this, but I do remember that there's one of the Rebbes, I don't know who it was, I tried to look a little bit, said that the whole idea of a messenger being, you being responsible for your messenger's actions, is why Yaakov was so upset. Because he said, if I sent Yosef, he was my messenger, I was responsible for him. He was an extension of me. So we have to be careful with sending messengers to do work for us on Shabbat, because it's like as if we're actually there. We're actually responsible for that.
But in the end, at least Yaakov had a tikkun with that, right?
Yeah,
See
sure.
what Yosef did.
Yeah.
So
That's why Yosef tells his brothers to learn Torah on the way.
Yeah. Anyway, but but if you have if you have a non-Jew who's going by himself to another place, you're allowed to give him a letter, even in every case. In other words, he's going for himself. Okay, it's not your messenger boy. Okay, also somebody who has a non-Jewish worker for a year or longer, so a long-range employee. Asur l'shlocho b'erev Shabbat b'igeret.
It's not nivla though?
It's not, no, because it's like if you're sending him erev Shabbat, he's pretty much is going to do it on Shabbat. But if you only hired him for this igeret, there would be some people who would allow it, like we said originally. In other words, it's not your all the time worker, gopher boy. If it's your gopher boy, go get me, then it would be more of a problem than if it's a one-time deal. Because you could say he's doing it when he wants to do it, not when I want him to do it. Okay?
In the States, it's a real thing with on Fridays. Like if you leave out your mail, like some right, the guys they come pick it up and take it on Fridays. It's almost about going on Shabbos. Like I don't think no one worries about that really.
Yeah, I don't think so. But there's other issues in Chutz La'aretz also, other things.
In Canada, they don't do they close on Saturdays.
What in Canada?
Yeah, they don't have.
I don't remember.
Yeah. Anyway.
Do you remember?
I'm pretty sure. I think it's in the States that have.
Okay. So look, let's just do a little bit. We're Resh Mem Chet, right? Up to Resh Mem Chet. I don't think we're going to get to what we prepared for this week. Sorry.
Give us an extra week.
Okay. מותר להפליג בספינה אפילו בערב שבת אם הולך לדבר מצווה הוא פוסק עמו שישבות אם אחר כך לא ישבות אין בכך כלום אבל לדבר הרשות אין מפליגים בספינה פחות מ3 ימים קודם השבת So you don't get in a boat through within 3 days of Shabbat. Remember the Baal Shem Tov, we learned about Charish, Katzir, Tishbot, Charish, Chamishi, Revi'i, Shishi. There's a special light that starts on Yom Revi'i, Lechun, around in the morning. We start saying Shabbat Shalom. We get the Nefesh, Ruach, and Shama of the next Shabbat. I also saw the Noam Elimelech test when Avram had his 3 guests. They were represented Ava, Yira, and Tiferet, and each, the Ava, Yira, and Tiferet, Betoch Yira is before Shabbat, and Ava, Yira, and Tiferet, Betoch Ava is after Shabbat. It's a beautiful Noam Elimelech. Another time we'll have a chance to maybe look at it yourselves if you want. It's not that hard, but bottom line is that this 3 days before Shabbat are very, very sacred times of preparing for Shabbat. What is the whole problem here? There's a bunch of different why travel is banned 3 days before Shabbat. Interestingly enough, the Rif says that it's an issue of oneg Shabbat, of being like shaky and seasick, or your body's not comfortable until 4 days after you're on a cruise. I don't know if it's true. I've never been on a cruise.
What do they say about flights, like Thursday night flights?
If you're flying through Shabbat, right? So
no, you get,
if you land before and you get up
you land Friday
morning.
morning. Let's say you're flying to New York.
yeah, nobody says that's usher, but they do say that, let's say, having a medical procedure that you could book earlier in the week, it's not an emergency, would be you wouldn't be able to do it in those 3 days before Shabbat because it will affect your own Shabbat. But I haven't seen anybody talk about flights. I've seen people talk about bikes. I saw people say in the beginning when they first started having bicycles, and they're saying, "Is it okay? What's the issue? Fixing a kli? It could be like a chashash of fixing a kli." Some people said, "No, problem is oneg Shabbat because you're bouncing around like on a boat." Like their bicycles weren't our quality. But I thought it was funny. Like, what are you talking about? Everybody in the world loves riding a bike. It's like on a Shabbat to ride a bike on Shabbat, and not I'm not saying that you should ride bikes on Shabbat, but I'm saying that reason doesn't seem valid to me in our current day and age. But in the beginning of bicycles, that was one of the theories of why it wouldn't be allowed, because it's like a bumpy machine. I guess the roads also were probably not fun to ride bikes on, or maybe a lot of fun if you like off-roading. But okay, but isn't it amazing? If you're going for a dvar mitzvah, it would be allowed to get on this boat. Okay, what's included in a dvar mitzvah? Even to see your good friend. Even to see your good friend.
Parnasa considered a dvar mitzvah?
What?
Is Parnasa considered a dvar mitzvah?
Yeah, I would imagine.
So basically, any reason you can think of,
I would imagine. Where does it say it? Where does it say Dvar Mitzvah? Al B'Shabbat Asur, right? That we wouldn't be allowed to violate Shabbat because of this mitzvah, right? Right, we wouldn't be allowed to violate Shabbat because just to do a mitzvah, but for this 3 days before Shabbat, which is only the question of what's the problem here? Is it will you have to do work? Maybe you'll get into pikuach nefesh. Can you put yourself in a possible pikuach nefesh? There's a lot of different opinions of what the problem is. Chashash melacha, tchumin. But if the boat is more than 10 tfachim, yeah. If the water doesn't come up 10 tvachim, then, or if the water is more shallow than 10 tvachim, maybe it's. Bottom line is that again, this is another one of those halachot that thankfully we don't really. We're in a little bit of a different world right now. Obviously, it's halacha and it needs to be studied, but we're not generally thought it would be less applicable. When you guys wanted to continue with Erev Shabbat, what do we have to do on Erev Shabbat? There's some interesting stuff here. Can you get on a boat that's longer range? Can you go on a cruise that includes Shabbat? If you know, let's say you go on a Monday. So obviously there's a lot of things to deal with that. What if you're going in the desert and everybody knows that you're going to have to be Mechalel Shabbat because it's a sakana to just stop in the middle of the desert and leave the caravan, go ahead. Right, so you wouldn't go 3 days before Shabbat, but Yom Rishon, Yom Sheni, Shlishi, mutar l'tzeit. And if after there's sakana, then you would be allowed to violate Shabbat, but you're not. You're a little bit more distant from Shabbat, right? So these are some of the issues over there. So yeah, look at the end Ramah, the last Ramah of Resh Mem Chet. Haga yesh omrim kol makom she'adam holech lischora for business, or lirot pnei chavero, chashuv hakol dvar mitzvah, ve'eno chashuv dvar reshut, rak she'holech l'tayel. Just going on a little tiyul is dvar reshut, business or friendships is a dvar mitzvah. That's what I was remembering I was looking for. Right? Isn't that interesting?
Similar to the whole
Even if you have enough food to survive and you want to get extra parnasa, it's also dvar mitzvah. According to Mishnah Brother.
This is all Erev Shabbat?
This is all, yeah. We're not even at really the halachot of Erev Shabbat. Resh Mem Tet, what we were going to start this week, we'll do next week. Resh Mem Tet Dinim Hashayachim LeErev Shabbat. I sent some sources. I sent the Gemara and Sukkah, the bottom of the page, Mem Daled Amud Bet, about and the Rambam. In the Rambam there, see the first of all, see Rashi on the Gemara there. On the Rambam there, the Magid Mishnah is a pretty important one. Okay, the Magid Mishnah on not that first Rambam. I sent 2 pages of Rambam, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Ravid argues with the Rambam. Perek Shloshim. This is on Asur Likvua Seuda, Erev Shabbat. There's the Ravid, Machloket Rambam Ravid, Magid Mishnah. We're going to introduce you to them. If you know them very well, great. I'll add a little bit, hopefully historically, or who they were and what was going on. That's what I was hoping to do a little bit more today. Also, I brought the Rif. See the Rif and the Ran. Okay, so we'll see the Gemara, Rashi, Rambam, Ravid, Magid Mishnah, the Rif, the Ran. The Ran argues with Rashi and Rambam, and we'll try to figure out why, and sort of doing a little bit more be'iyun. The Bach I sent you, Ot Bet, I think is a critical one in general for halachic process, how halacha develops. When we have a machloket in the Gemara, which opinion is the one that we follow? When is it not always like that? I think it's just an interesting thing that it's good to know about the process of how the Rishonim work in getting down to the halacha.
The Bach and Resh Mem Chet?
Yeah, both the Bach and Beit Yosef I think is Ot Bet of Resh Mem Chet. Reish Mem Tet, slicha.
מה זה?
יש מ"ט.
Right? There's the Bach, the Beit Yosef, and yeah. And if you guys finished all that,
You can get to the Beit Yosef.
so okay, so at least you'll start that, and maybe you want to consider something else to add to the richness even deeper. Okay, if you're interested. The Rif and Run. Oh yeah, just try it. Try to see how does the Run.
The
The Bach was the Run, but yeah, like you see it in his own words.
Yeah.
And where's he coming from? Why is he saying what he's saying? And you know, when you're learning this stuff, it's really helpful to just what is the point of the Nekudat HaMachloket? What is the really the source of the seeing it a different way? Okay? Like, do they have a totally different understanding of what's going on, or is it just a little small nuance? What are they really arguing about? I think that there's a lot to go there. All right, so I apologize that this was a little bit of a run through and we didn't do anything in depth. I like to at least some weeks do a little bit more in depth, but I think we filled in the blanks. I feel better about it moving on. With at least if we're not going to do every single thing in depth, at least we know a little bit of what's going on over there. And when we finish Erev Shabbat, we'll just do a little review of practical applications of halacha on this. Okay, of like all these things, the first bunch of simanim. So we'll do a little review. I haven't decided yet which sefer to use to review, or if a bunch of others, a bunch of different smarim. My newest sefer in Hilchot Shabbat is I got the Ramor Eliyahu. I really like it. It's really nice. I like it. Ma'amar Mordechai.
Also good for Ashkenazi. Also music.
Yeah, it's not like it's written from his perspective, but it's useful. Once you know what we know, you could understand which parts are not. And he brings also some minhagim, the Ben Ish Chai, is a lot of Ben Ish Chai. We didn't do the Ben Ish Chai yet, but maybe we'll get to know the Ben Ish Chai also one of these days. Okay? So Chodesh Tov U'Varach, we shall be blessed. We shall be blessed to have rectified connections with the non-Jewish world, all the non-Jews, to have healthy distinction, and but at the same time feeling like we're part of all of humanity, and realizing that our Shabbat could really influence and lift up the whole world. It already has in a lot of ways, and we should all be zoche also to like we said, to fix our eating, and the amount we prepare for Shabbat, and even thinking about our businesses, or our Olam Hazeh as being, as what it really is, Olam Hazeh, not and be able to focus on Olam Haemet, but without letting go of Olam Hazeh. That's our one of our mission statements here as a Jewish people, is trying to live in both. And that's why I think it's so beautiful that the Rambam chose to start Hilchot Shabbat in a totally different way. Like, what is malacha, and what is that? And here the Torah chose to start the Hilchot Shabbat with all like the preparation, the what's coming up. I like that. I'm sure the Rambam has very, very high and holy reasoning for the Seder of his Hilchot Shabbat, but something about this really speaks to me, that all this preparation and anticipation and build-up, and what can we do to prepare and to remember Shabbat during the week, extend Shabbat, say Shabbat Chachol, to make our Chol have a little bit of Shabbos energy. It feels good. It feels good to me. So. חודש טוב, שנשמע בשורות טובות, שנשמע בשורות טובות.
Welcome back.
He went there too. He went to the
Without the kids.
I said the kids.
Where'd you send the kids?
Turbulent.
No,
Whatever.
it's amazing.